It's good. So we're finally here. After the mixed bag that was Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Team decided to go back to one of Sonic's most critically acclaimed games and not only remaster it, but give it an entirely new campaign on top of it. I was really excited. Not only is Sonic Generations one of my favorite games of all time, so seeing it in the spotlight with new people experiencing it and loving it as much as I did is great to see. But the shadow portion of the game also looked pretty great. There was a clear level of quality control and polish from the trailers that we didn't see much of in Frontiers. The presentation was better, the animation was the best we've ever seen in a long while, and while people were skeptical on how they would go about the level design, I was a bit too. Later trailers and people who played the game confirmed that the newer levels were on the same level as Sonic Generations. And with new additions like the Doom powers and Chaos Control, this was looking to be an entirely new and fresh take on the boost formula. It was honestly the first time I was legitimately excited for a Sonic game in years. Frontiers had me hooked, but it was more of a let's see how this plays out and not me being legit excited for the game. It was more optimism in a way. But Shadow Generations, which is what I'm going to be calling it for now, had legitimate reasons to be excited for, so did it deliver? Well, I think it's important to start off with the first half of the game, that being the Sonic portion, which probably has the most controversy in the game's initial release. The main reason being the brand new rewrite done by new series mainstay Ian Flynn. Now, it should be no surprise that the OG Generations is kind of known for not having the most amazing story. Shit's just kind of flat. Has anyone else noticed that Classic Tails just kind of shows up? He has literally no introduction. He doesn't show in the beginning cutscene, and he just kind of shows up randomly after the first boss. How do you have plot holes in a game with no plot? So the idea of a rewrite interested me, but what we got was very clunky to say the least. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's as bad as people are saying, but the Generations rewrite is just kind of unnecessary. It doesn't change much besides having Sonic and Tails be more aware of the past locations, and some few neat references like Sonic mentioning the time stones from CD when Tails figures out what's going on. But at the same time, we have moments where it feels like Flynn is just trying to have a larger word count than the original, and it doesn't help that Sonic Team did nothing to change up the animation for the new dialogue. This then leads to them canonically confirming that classic Sonic 8 Angel Island. It's just done so haphazardly. I understand it isn't the big new thing that the team is putting their full focus on, but I feel like not being able to do the bare minimum is kind of disappointing. Even more disappointing considering they've shown they are able to tweak the cutscenes if they want to. Yeah, probably the aspect about the remaster that has gotten the most attention has to do with the changes in the cutscenes. Granted, there aren't a lot of them, but they mainly have to do with Amy, with scenes of her in the beginning and the end being toned down for her more modern characterization. I don't mind these changes. I can kind of see why some people would hate the scenes from the original. Sonic just looks like an ass here, and I remember this scene was seen as spiteful towards Knuckles, so it's not that big of a deal to me. And for fucking some reason, this has also gotten the anti-woke mob in a twist, which, like, I'm sorry, if you use terms like woke, I'm not gonna take you seriously. I legit saw someone try to equate this to censorship and a step towards the downfall of free speech, which is like, no. I don't understand why people think censorship is more prevalent nowadays in kids' media when I'd argue it's the same, if not worse, back in the day. There are plenty of examples of shit being outright banned in the States back then that would probably be fine today, but people are acting like it's a new thing trying to suppress free speech or some dumb shit. No, Rouge having less cleavage is not suppressing your free speech. You have a porn addiction. To end off the Sonic Generations segment, I will say this is the definitive version of the game. Shit like the drop dash for classic Sonic is a good inclusion, even though for some reason you can't use it in the hub world or the mission stages, but you can for modern Sonic, where it's just kind of fucking useless because he already has the boost, but whatever. I do wish they could have gone further with it, maybe rework the final boss into being more like the 3DS version, and Generations desperately needs a conclusion level. It's still criminal that it ends on a random Sonic Color stage that is considered to be the worst one in the entire game. Again, Generations is Generations. I still love this game, but there are clear issues that could have been answered in the remaster to make this masterpiece even better. But Sonic Team decided to make another masterpiece. Shadow Generations is amazing, no other word to put it. I think it has the best aspects of any Sonic game in years. One of my biggest concerns with this add-on was that they wouldn't be able to replicate the Generation style of level design, that being layered stages where no matter how many times you play it, at least one thing would be different with each playthrough. Forces is kind of known for having very basic level design. I personally haven't played it, but I don't think it would fulfill that itch, and the cyberspace levels in Frontiers are no joke some of the worst stages in the entire series. They are carried by the addition of the spin dash. So with these two blunders, I was slightly skeptical that these stages wouldn't be as layered and open as the one in Generations, but I'm happy to say that they've done it. Each stage not only takes longer than a minute to beat, a grand feat I know, but has the same complexity and layeredness as the original Generations. I honestly think all the levels here are great. My favorites have to be the Arc, Radical Highway, and Kingdom Valley. Those were a blast to get through, and I'm already seeing people do some crazy speedruns in them with alternate pathways that I haven't even seen yet, so there's already a lot of replayability. I personally beat the game in under 4 hours, so it's just as long as the original Generations, but like that one, there's plenty of collectibles and missions you can complete that help up that runtime. I really enjoy the missions here. They have pretty simple objectives like beat a stage with one ring or beat a certain amount of enemies, but they also have their own collectibles, leading to these stages also having pretty fun level design. Simply put, people are going to be playing this one for a while, but still, I wanted more. I know saying that is more of a compliment than a criticism, but man, I really do wish there was at least one more stage or maybe more missions to do during or after the game. Since yeah, all the missions you do are required to beat the game, and there's only 2 per act compared to the fuck ton in Sonic Generations. I did see that if you enter the Doom Zone, there is an extra mission, but I haven't really explored that, so if that completely undermines my argument, then just ignore this. Still, I am hoping for a Frontier-style update schedule for this game in 2025, hopefully. Maybe have like 1 to 3 levels per update pack and add in a boss. I don't know, but just please don't be like the original Generations and have literally 0 DLC after launch besides a stupid casino gimmick. In addition to this game is the brand new Doom powers that Shadow obtains after certain levels, and these are a real treat to use once you get used to them. My favorites either have to be the Doom Surf or that Doom Punch thing. I forget the names, but they're really cool. I know people had problems with the Doom Morph, but honestly I kind of got used to it after a couple minutes, but I can definitely see how a lot of people struggle with it. And it seems that this thing is people's one major complaint about it, so maybe a tweak in the controls could iron things out. Still, I can't wait to use these powers to full effect when I replay the stages. After you beat the final boss, you get full access to the Doom Wings, which I'm guessing is supposed to be a sort of substitute for Super Shadow, and it was really fun to use as well. I could see a lot of shortcuts and alternate pathways being achieved with this thing. Another thing I have to praise are the boss fights. I think all of them are really good and use the new Doom powers to great effect. Personal favorites have to be Metal Overlord, Mephiles, and the final boss, Devil and Neo Devil Doom gave me some trouble, but it was really fun to play either way. It has the perfect balance of being a spectacle like the bosses in Frontiers, but also having a controlled, fun pattern of a Generations boss fight. I also really enjoyed the dialogue in the fights, which for some reason they don't add in Generations. Yeah, great. But I really enjoy the interactions Shadow had with Metal and Mephiles. Specifically Mephiles, I think the new voice actor does a great job at making him sound desperate, and the concept of him fighting for himself to be canon after the events of 06 is just really cool to me. Metal Overlord is another one I really like. Him trying his best to prove that he's the real ultimate life form was really neat, and I love the added detail of him canceling out chaos control, since yeah, he's able to do that too. And it's also consistent with the final boss, where Shadow was able to do the same thing to land the final blow. The last gameplay thing I want to talk about is the White Space Hub world, which was confirmed to take direct inspiration from the open zones in Sonic Frontiers, and honestly I really enjoyed it. Just like Frontiers, I think it's just fun to run around in an open space as a Sonic character. I will always defend that aspect of Frontiers despite how unpolished it is, but Shadow Generations fixes pretty much everything about it. It isn't anything too crazy, it's not as big or has as many collectibles as Frontiers, but it manages to be on par with it due to the extra polish it has. There's no weird collision, there's no easy to use exploit that makes the game easy as fuck to get through, and I haven't experienced any of the terrain pushing me to another direction that I don't want to go to, which happened to me many times in Frontiers with the dash pads. It's all very tightly put together, and with the added collectibles and missions, I wouldn't mind this also getting some cool updates. I've heard that doing the Cubot and Orbot missions legit gives you nothing but a new song, so maybe change that and add some collectibles for the other characters, and you just added a good 2 hours of gameplay right there. Speaking of other characters, I think it's important to point out the story. Unlike the Sonic Generations rewrite, Shadow Generations has gotten pretty good reception in terms of the story, this time focusing on and exploring aspects of Shadow's past. The gist of it is basically Shadow senses the Black Arms is on the Ark and makes his way there. I don't really know how I feel about the fact that the setup for all of this is dedicated into a YouTube series, but whatever, it looks cool. He eventually finds out that Black Doom has returned, and due to the Time Eater doing his thing, Shadow is transported to White Space, where he then has to confront his past head on. I think the story is pretty good, but I do have some issues with it. Okay, first of all, was I the only one that thought Omega would get more screen time? He just kind of shows up in the beginning and just disappears cutscene wise for the rest of the game. Just pretty weird. Just thought I'd point that out. I also will say, while I do like the inclusion of Maria and Gerald, this being the first time we've seen all three of them interact in a while, but the scenes with them felt sort of repetitive, and I feel like there should have been way more of them interacting because of it. From my recollection, it was just Doom talking shit to Shadow, Shadow being angry, and Maria telling him to calm down. This isn't to say it's bad. I think those scenes are good. I would just like a little more. I do honestly love the scene of Shadow smiling to Maria before fighting Devil Doom. That melted my heart. And the ending with Shadow crying is just amazing. I fucking love it. Anyways, yeah, that's Sonic X Shadow Generations. Don't let my criticisms take away from how amazing this is as an overall package. The negatives I pointed out are really minor and did not hinder my enjoyment at all. I'm really glad this game is doing well. It's already sold 1 million copies and is getting 9s across the board. I guess the question is, what's next? I still really want to see a Frontier sequel, since I think the added manpower and budget could make for an excellent sequel. But there's also talks to make standalone Shadow games, which I think can work as well. My next question is, who's the next Sonic character to get the spotlight for the year? I guess it all really depends on the movies, since it seems that Sonic Team are trying to be congruent with them. So the next one I can think of is Silver, which, I mean, I like the guy and I would love to have a Sonic X Shadow type game with him, but I don't think he's as recognizable as Shadow, but we'll see how things play out. Anyways, go buy Shadow Generations. It's really good, and I love Shadow. Ow, fuck.